is Ignition and what does it do? Well, Ignition simply sets out to find people with the potential to work in the arts. And often these people have not considered it for all kinds of social and economic reasons. It opens the door for them and it tells them they can be part and that their voice and presence is welcome. It offers training, industry connections, links to further education and employment opportunities.
Yo, what are you saying? My name's David Gilbert. It's like a mic check thing. Yeah, so I did Ignition. This is mad because this is actually my duo partner on this one.
We did the scene together.
2008.
2008. So we're old.
Yeah,
but we're OGs.
OGs
of Ignition.
I heard this week that Ignition wasn't going to be able to continue because of the fundraising and the money it's just not been there. And Frantic Assembly have done so much to support so many different schools, organisations, youth groups and people all around the country and the world really. And I think people don't realise enough how much funding isn't in the company.
For someone who came to United Kingdom and then have like not being confident on like being who he is like, and how to portray, because like the industry is so brutal, and then like for you to break through or like find a way to express yourself, to express your culture, your background, where you come from, also like your story, that's huge in a way that Ignition did it for me, you know what I mean? So Ignition was like my breakthrough in the arts industry, and then after that like I'm doing like, if I do have that confidence that I wanted to have like to pursue, you know what I mean? Like I'm confident on my own skin. That's also like come from Ignition.
When you join Frantic Ignition, it really does become like a family, and once you make the connection, they're really good at keeping it. Myself and Oliver are here at Chichester Theatre Festival doing a show, Frantic and Headlong, and we got the opportunity to audition through the Ignition programme. So not only are they really good at helping you develop and grow through the week that you work with them, but they're also really good at helping you grow as an individual, as a performer, as an overall person. And I think without Ignition, our lives might be looking different to how they did now.
When I started, I didn't go to drama school or anything, but I very much have felt that through Frantic Assembly, I've kind of had that drama school relationship of being able to have the support even after Ignition was over, and being able to come back, do some peer practitioning with them, peer mental practitioning with them around England, and work on some shows with them. And I have just really felt supported with them throughout the process.
I joined Ignition in 2023, so the year before it got cancelled. Scott was my director and Perry was my assistant director. No, sorry, scratch that. He was my co-director. What am I talking about? It has changed my life completely. Like everything that Scott said in his speech about being enough, that's what I learned from Ignition. I come from the north. I was born in Newcastle, raised in County Durham, and we don't get any funding at all for the arts. And Frantic Assembly just pops up one time. It's a Northern Stage, and one of their practitioners was like, audition for Ignition, you, get yourself there. And I did.
On our last few productions, Othello had 5 Ignition graduates as part of that team. Metamorphosis had 6. The House Party had 6. And among our practitioners who we've trained up from scratch, who teach the Frantic method all around the world, there are 7 Ignition graduates. That's something we're incredibly proud of. It's tangible, it's real.
When I arrived at Ignition last year, I met people who were just the same as me, energy-wise, creativity-wise, and everyone was just on it together. And I think it's tough to find that in this big, massive, like overwhelming industry. And when you're in Brixton House for the week that we did, it's like you feel comfortable and you meet these people literally like for 2 hours and you're straight into rehearsal. It's crazy how fast you can bond with someone through physical movement and touch, and I think probably one of the best experiences of my life. I can't lie, like the best experiences of my life.
For men to work that closely, to work from a movement perspective, especially for people around that age bracket, really wasn't a thing. It didn't happen. But I don't think there was no uncomfortableness. We felt completely safe. We were doing physical theatre lifts that I've never done before. Literally day one, right? You said we were being lifted in the air,
yeah.
and just experiencing body weight and shifting our weight, stuff that I've never even thought was possible on stage. So to have that experience and to just feel really comfortable and have something to look forward to every day as well, and to experience that 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. rehearsal schedule like a professional actor did, it kind of set me up. And for me, it actually cemented my decision to pursue this as a career for me.
I did Ignition in 2019 and then went on to do Othello, the UK tour 2022 to 2023, which was a show I actually studied for my A-levels. And the transition from doing my A-levels and studying it to then being in it was obviously a dream come true. And I never thought that was possible until I did Ignition. And I met all these people. And especially how I felt from my Ignition was the show that we made was all about the people in the room. And it was all about a certain theme, but it was making sure that everyone got a chance to speak and have their input in the show. And I think that creates more confidence in people. It gives them more guidance and gives them a more clear view of where they want to be. I mean, there's people who've done Frantic Ignition who are now chefs, who are pilots, who are doctors, they work in like cinematography, or they're actors. It's not just people in the arts, it supports young people in such a great way that I just think it can't be missed.
I think what's really great about Scott though and Frantic, like their values is like you have no limits. Yeah. Like you can push yourself to do whatever, and if you think you can't do it, you probably can. Is what Scott has taught me. Like for the rehearsal process of House Party, there was like this little sort of backwards flip push thing that I do, and it started off quite small, and I said to myself out loud, I was like, oh, it's kind of boring, and Scott was like, well, we won't make it boring, we'll do this, and we added layers to it, we brought other people, we brought Priya into it.
Yeah, the layers thing is great.
And yeah, it's great, so you could never, it's just great about, he's so good at just telling you that you can do it, and you actually can. He's taught me that I can, so I just love the values that he holds.
For me, like personally, I've never worked in such a intense but positive way. When they kind of told us originally we were going to create a piece of theatre in 4 days, I didn't think it was possible. But what I loved about the process was that it didn't feel rushed. Even though we only had 4 days, I felt extremely prepared the Wednesday, the Thursday beforehand, because me and David were talking earlier. We worked in kind of pairs for, working on stories, working on narratives, working on movement, and suddenly Scott said to us, okay, everyone put their pieces together, and then suddenly we had a piece. We had like an hour's worth of material.
I hadn't grown up, doing like youth theatre clubs, or I think actually when I went to Ignition, I don't think I'd actually ever been to a theatre. I don't think I'd seen a play in a theatre, a professional play in a theatre before. So I remember at the time and I was going to these things called drama school auditions and like meeting like very. I mean, we know who I mean. And like had like a real complex about like this thing of like, oh, you haven't read this Arthur Miller play, or you haven't seen this like Pinter show in the West End or whatever, and just like feeling lesser than, or feeling like people had something that I didn't have, and that was the reason why I probably shouldn't or couldn't become an actor. And then, kind of like responded to this like ad on Facebook, which is simple, and then did I remember, I don't know if you remember, like doing the audition workshop or whatever. It was at the Lyric, Hammersmith. I'd never been to Hammersmith before, and no one in that room asked what you had read or what you had seen or where you had been. It was just purely about us. It was about us and like how we related to each other and how we moved and what we were interested in. It was also, I think, honestly, it's the first time I've met someone who's like from Milford Watford, and it was this like amazing kind of, and then we actually got to doing the course. And you say that you start each day by doing warm-ups. They were like absolute hellstorms. We were like, for real, we were like children, and we were getting us to plank for like 10 minutes. How does this make you a better actor? But like there was something about the camaraderie and also like the joining together of people who weren't, it wasn't about acting or like becoming an actor, it wasn't about getting into drama school, it wasn't about like getting your first job or whatever, it was just about like creativity and something that came from within that had value. And like you say, like the thing of like you are enough, that I can't stress how important that is for a young, actually for anybody really to accept, like, particularly at that stage in your career, to accept you are enough, because that actually like frees your imagination to believe that anything is possible. If you say that you are enough, it means that anything that you think of or you dream of is achievable. And at that age, like when like at school, there's so many things that like that box you and teach you to be less than or reduce yourself or to shackle your dreams or whatever. To have someone to actually like give you the validation that your ideas are important and actually worthy of being on stage in front of an audience, paying audience of people you don't know. I'd never done that before. And ideas that we had built in the room together, for someone to teach you that has value and worth, and it's interesting and exciting. It's so like foundational in order for building yourself towards becoming an artist in your own right. So without a doubt, that was like such a formative, important moment in my career in terms of where it led me to do it. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for that. So I will always eternally be grateful for that. Yeah. And I can't stress how important. I'm so certain that everybody else who has gone through that process says exactly the same.
I've come from a dance background, innit? And when I did Ignition 2019, it's when I was like first started getting into dance and doing more hip hop and light feed. But with the show that we did, like a lot of movements that I usually do with like my crew and stuff, like Scott and like all the other practitioners as well, like Gav, Sean, like they all just took like aspects of everyone's skills and just like melded into one beautiful, what's the word? It's one beautiful thing. That's what I have to say. That's one beautiful thing. Like even though they're teaching you other skills, they do not forget the most important part, which is you. That essence of you being put into the work. Yeah.
Even if you aren't a physical performer or physical person, Frantic still finds a way to make you feel comfortable and confident in yourself to become a high intensity physical performer. And for someone that's not an easy thing to do. And for a company, for one person like Scott, Perry, for them to be able to do that with someone who was not confident, and by the end of that week of Ignition, you're so high in confidence, it's something special, man. It is genuinely amazing.
I trained as an athlete and I didn't know how that sat within my body as an actor or a performer or just being on stage. I felt so alien to everything, and just I didn't feel like what I brought to the room was needed in the room. But Scott told me that all of that was rubbish and that who I was and who I came into that room as was what was needed. And I didn't have anyone tell me that in my life before, and I owe everything to Ignition.
I'm so used to being a trick pony, and I would get the audience's attention by doing a flip and a trick, and it's the first time I've ever been stood in front of an audience and done nothing, and I had them, and like they were watching me, and they weren't premeditating a trick, and the audience wasn't premeditating me to do something flash. I just got to stand there, and it was a real powerful moment, and it's the first time I've ever found a stillness in myself and went, I know we've said it already and I know you explained it perfectly, but as in like being enough, that's kind of what that moment was for me, and I was kind of like, wow, I don't have to have these flashy stuff, I don't like, because I didn't ever feel a belonging into that environment, into venues. It wasn't, like I said, I had aspirations, but even they were limited, but I didn't know that. I didn't know my own aspirations were limited because I didn't know any other opportunities. Scott kind of threw me on the deep end. When they come back to Plymouth the following year, we were running the Ignition workshops, and Scott kind of went, oh, you know the 3-person catch, can you just kind of show them how to do it? I kind of went, yeah, okay, so I started to teach a bit of movement in the Frantic style. Leading on from that, became a practitioner, led me to like co-directing Ignition shows, led to these guys sorting me out a passport. I've been all over China, Malaysia, did a stint in Singapore, travelled Australia, went to Norway, and all of that work was with Ignition graduates as well. And the biggest kind of like what I took from that is I felt that actually I felt like a professional. Like I said, I would have never stepped foot in a room if I knew who was in the room, CEO of that, director of that, actor of that. I wouldn't have bothered, but I walk into these rooms now and I feel like I've got a place.
Just seeing like how much I think we've all grown from just working with, because we only really had about 1 week of rehearsal, which is pretty much the same that you get in Ignition. Like, it's so valuable, and it completely changes how you perceive theatre making and how you perceive how to work in a rehearsal room, and just how you can apply yourself in general life.
So many Ignition grads in the room who are doing loads of brilliant and wonderful things in the industry and are change makers in the game, on the stage, off the stage. Ignition is part of the spark that has created that. So it's so important that whoever can support this program, please do, because it's some of the seeds that will create the next, the next face of theatre and art and culture in this country and obviously beyond as well. So, it's a really beautiful project, and hopefully from this you can get a sense of that. So yeah, man, big up. Ignition, Frantic.
Yeah, man. Saviors, you're saviors of young people. Yeah. Because you never know what they're going through, and something like that can turn your life around. And people that are watching, that have got the money to donate, because it's an amazing cause.
Yeah. Spread the word. Do what you can.
Yeah.
What he says about the door, the open door, is really important, because I fundamentally believe that within the arts, so we have good values, and we want to open that door. We unlock the door, I suppose. But what I'm trying to say is, and what Perry said beautifully is, if you're on the other side of it and you don't get it, you just don't get that world, it still looks like a locked door. So we have to do something different. The whole dynamic is different, which is why Ignition goes looking. And it goes looking in the places where nobody else looks. And I genuinely don't know who else does that, and I don't know what happens if we're not around to do it.
Ignition costs £75,000 a year to run, and I'm glad to say that through the good graces of lots of people here in the room tonight, we're at 50% of the funds we need to run. That still leaves a long way to go, and actually what we really want to do is we want to secure the long-term future of Ignition, certainly over the next 3 years. So we're doing lots of fundraising through trusts and foundations, but we are also doing lots of public appeals, and that's really where we're asking everybody here. Those that have given to Ignition already, please tell people what you've heard tonight, and please tell them to give some money too. We're going to be taking part in this year's Christmas Big Give, which is a public fundraising campaign that effectively match funds every pound donated. So for every pound that the public donates, we get £2. So if anybody's got a huge social media following, if everybody's got a profile that they can use, please use it to amplify our message. We've done really well, and again, as I say, thank you to everybody in the room that's already donated to Ignition, and I hope that we'll bring Ignition back next year and on. So we've got another 15 years of graduates. They're going to be standing in a room and telling everybody how great it is. Thank you very much.